record here. As you know, I have worked with people for quite some time, and I kind of joke sometimes that there's a lot of things I can teach about because I've done it wrong. And so I've seen things that worked. Definitely seen things that didn't work. And it's interesting when you've had some experience. That's why it's so important to realize that there really are no failures. There are learning experiences, and yeah, occasionally you might lose someone because you didn't handle it the perfect way, but you handled it the best you knew how at the time, and you'll learn new things. And it's just it's just one of those things that it's just important to understand that you're going to keep learning. You're going to have these experiences, and you'll feel it. You'll feel it when it didn't work, and you'll feel it when it did work. And it's kind of cool. So we're going to talk about a couple more things today about how to empower your team members, show support without doing everything for them at the same time, and getting their head in the games. A couple of things. So I know, let's see, we don't have too much to review because I know Janae she hasn't been in a working situation. And I know Jordan's team members, there's some limbo going on, and it's just summer. But one of the things I want to talk to you about is helping your team set goals. If you remember when we very first started working together, one of the things that I have everyone do, everyone, and quite frankly, this is one of the few things that 95% of my people have done. Whereas other assignments I give them, sometimes they don't always do. But it's so important to start them with a bucket list. I probably should take some classes in psychology or something. But a bucket list is a great way. Let me sit back. People so often, if you ask them what their goals are, what they want, what's important to them, they can't always tell you. They're not really able to articulate it for a couple different reasons. Sometimes they don't dare dream for fear that they won't get it, for fear they don't know how to get it, for fear that it makes them look arrogant or prideful or worldly. There's lots of reasons that people don't dream, don't set goals, don't think about what they want. They try to just be content, which that's a good thing, to be content and just grateful for where you're at. But at the same time, I have a very, very strong belief that if we're not working on our goals, that there's somebody else's goals who can't be accomplished, okay? Each of you have different things that you sell. Each of you have different things that you offer, different business opportunities. And if you're not working yours, somebody else isn't going to know that there's an opportunity for them. Somebody else isn't going to know there's a different option for help. Somebody else isn't going to know about a fun way to dress. Okay, there's different things that people aren't going to get if you're not doing your thing. And so it's important to be able to dream, to set goals, and we have to help our team members change their mindset and allow themselves to set goals, allow themselves to have experience where a goal was accomplished that they set. If you think about it, all of us have that time in our life. There's a pivotal time in our life where there's something that we wanted, or quote unquote, a goal that we set, and it didn't happen. It didn't work out. There's something we wanted to do, and it just didn't come to pass. We all have some situations like that. And that's where we started changing our thinking and slowing down and not setting goals as much. We need to start kick that again for people and help them realize that things can happen. So it's really important that we get people to just start with a bucket list. They can put anything on it, places they want to travel, things they want to do, hobbies they want to start. Just help them start a fun bucket list and just have fun with it. Put as many things on there as they can. Just enjoy the process. And I can't tell you how often when I have people do that, that they are amazed and shocked within 4 to 6 weeks, something on that bucket list comes to pass. And they need that experience. They need that experience to hang on to with everything they've got, so that when we help them get brave enough to start setting very concrete goals based on their businesses, that they're able to let go and not have so much fear, and set the goal and work at it, but also allow God and the universe to make it happen for them and assist them in creating that success, that reality. So one of the things, if you haven't ever done this with your team yet, and I would highly encourage you to make this part of your very initial training with every single new member that comes into your team. You could even make a cute little printable that they fill in, so then you have like maybe a 1 through 100 on there. It could have your company name on it. Whatever you want to do. I guess maybe that's something I need to create that people can use. It could be something on their phone. There are literally apps that you can create dream boards on apps. I can kind of tell you some fun stories about a friend of mine who uses that with their kids, and almost everything they've put on there has come to pass. There's a lot of fun ways to do this. Just an open-ended list under notes on their phone, a paper they stick on their fridge, a notebook they have, something. Commit them to making a bucket list. Don't try terribly hard to get out of them what they want out of their business at the very beginning, unless you can see that there's someone who signed up, said, I want to make this a business, I want to make some money at this. If they can articulate that on themselves, telling you that from the beginning, then great, have that conversation. But that 80 to 90% of them aren't able to do that. And so that's where we need to help them. It's kind of like being a personal trainer and helping somebody get into shape. There are certain things they'd want you to be able to do in the long run, but they start out with simple cardio and light weights and work up to where they want you to be. When we try really hard to get them to set this really specific, I want to make $5,000 a month and have X amount of classes and have this many team members, and that is like asking them to bench press 100 pounds and they can't do 20 yet. Okay, that's the same thing. We have to move them towards that, and that first thing, the first little cardio and just getting them moving, is a bucket list. That's where you want to start. So I would, if you have a big group, like Jennifer, you have a big group of people, I would even say, hey, here's a challenge. I just want you to do something fun this week. Put down 50 things on a bucket list. For everyone that does, send your name in to me. It's on your honor. And I'll give you, do a gift certificate, free oils, free skirt, whatever you want to do. But get people to do that bucket list. It changes the way they think. It amazes me how often, I can hardly count on one hand how many people have done this and didn't see something transpire within a short amount of time. They need that to build on, so that then you can have that real conversation about what they want out of their business. You will see amazing things happen when you do this, okay? And I wish I could tell you the exact science behind it. I just know that it brings down some of their fear and opens up their ability to ask for what they want. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to move into then how do we help them set some business goals, okay? And I'll go back and forth between these two different types of people. If you have a new person or someone who's like completely died and then restarting up, okay, those are going to be the same type of person. Those will always be called a new person from today. And then you have the person who works semi-consistently. They've had a couple parties. They know what can happen. They just don't have as much consistency as they could have yet. But they do have some belief in making a little bit of money and that people actually do buy the product and they can have some success, okay? Those are two different types of groups of people. So I'm going to first talk about your newbie or your person getting restarted, okay? I see people over and over and over again going, I had this team meeting and we did dream boards. They went home and they didn't do anything different, okay? If anyone has seen that or even done that themselves, I'm going to explain to you what you can do different, okay? Because I see people all the time try to do this effective goal setting training with their team, but realize that just doing a dream board versus put real specific action and really, really, really small, what do you want this week goals, it just doesn't quite happen. So the bucket list is kind of like that dream board. It just opens up the tunnel in your head. I always imagine this little hole in the top of your head and it kind of opening up and allowing yourself to ask for what you want and to receive inspiration on how to make it happen. So the bucket list just kind of expands that opening, that tunnel. Okay, so for a newbie, this is what I would personally do. Let me give you an example. One company I was with, they had a rule that you didn't get your kit unless you had 6 parties booked. They wanted you off to a kickstart, okay? They wanted a really solid foundation. Now, both of your companies, so we have someone who sells skirts and we have 2 that sell doTERRA. It's a little bit different. doTERRA has their, let's get you excited about the product, and then let's give you the opportunity to know that you can be a business builder. With the skirts, you're buying this huge kit, huge. And so for that one, it's that you wanted to make money. You don't get into that as a hobbyist. It's way too expensive as a hobby. You can buy a heap load of skirts for the price of the kit and just wear them to your heart's content and have a different one for every day of the month, okay? So you don't have the same situation. My situation, they were giving them $1,000 of jewelry for $100, and so they're like, we're investing in you. At least you're going to do is book 6 parties, okay? But the concept of getting so many classes booked, so many parties booked, okay, so that they have that success, that is one of the things that's really important for you to like start thinking about how you will implement that, okay? So if you have someone with doTERRA who from the get-go you can tell they want to make it a business, we need to do some really good educating about if you want to make X amount of dollars, this is how many classes on average you'll need to do. And you probably do that, but you give them, I call it polite education, give them some education and follow that up with, okay, what do you feel like you can do? And get their calendar out. Help them mark the days that they literally know they can work, not the days they can't work, okay? Yes, have them cross out the soccer game nights and the church nights or, date night, whatever it is. Help them find the days they can work. Help them make a very concrete plan and make a 30-day goal as to maybe how many one-on-ones, how many classes, to name for you, how many parties. Who do you know that you're going to go to, or how many people are you going to invite to your initial party, and then what's the goal with how many parties you're going to book off that initial one. We've got to help them get really concrete goals and get them written down so they see the power in that, okay? It doesn't matter if their goals are the same. You can have one person set, I'm just going to do 1 class, you can have another person set 6 classes. As long as they understand what they're going to get out of it. If somebody only wants to do 1 class and wants to make $1,200 that month, obviously you have to do some polite educating. That's what I call it, because we can't talk down to them, but sometimes they just don't quite think it through, and I don't know why. People just sometimes don't do the math in their head. Some people just seems to be numbers people more than other people. We can go, well, duh, that doesn't make sense. They can't make that much money if they're not doing this much activity, because we do the division in our head real quick. They sometimes just don't see that. So that's where we empower them and we break it down for them and just say, well, if you'd like to make $1,200, you said you want to do 2 classes. On average, this is how much the classes are. You'd have to either set a goal to do a couple more classes or set a goal to do so many one-on-ones, okay? Help them break it down so they get consistent, okay? We've talked about follow-up in the past. So this is where, based on what they want to do, it doesn't matter what they want to do. You just want to get them consistent and see that goals can be set and then accomplished, okay? That's all you're trying to do right now. It doesn't matter how much they make, because they're all going to have different belief levels, and you just work with them where they're at. So the next thing you want to do is, after you ask them exactly what they want out of that 30 days, and you kind of have an idea of like how much money they might make, you want to ask them, what will you do with that? Why will it be worth it to do that? What are you going to use that money on? How is that going to benefit your family? How is that going to benefit you? What are you going to do different this week with that? And you want them to get a picture of that and put it on their calendar or on their phone or on their fridge or by their bed or all the above. Help them stay focused, because when they start making those phone calls, when they start doing those classes, and that excitement will start to come down a little bit, and the hard part will kick in. Not that it's overly hard, but sometimes, if for some reason, you have those girls that can book parties and in their sleep, and you have those that it just seems like it's just pulling teeth, okay? Everybody's a little different, but for the person that starts realizing this is out of their comfort zone, that's where they need a clear image of why they're doing this, okay? And you need to know why they are too. And that's where the motivational style comes in. Remember that they can't be setting the goal based on a title and purely on money if they're a change the world person. So if you're talking about the amount of money they want to earn and they are a change the world person, it's really, really, really important that there's this picture of what they see changing the world means. If that means they're helping their kid get into an activity, if that means they're donating it to some social cause they believe in or something in the community, that they're getting out of debt so they have more freedom so then they can do other things. They've got to have a clear picture, and they've got to define it based on their motivational style, okay? Does that make sense? You can't have them shooting for a title if they're a change the world person. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't. But you can still have them get so many recruits and get to a certain level because they know it's going to get them to their goal of changing the world. You can have 2 different people, 2 motivational styles get to the exact same place with the exact same amount of business, but you have to talk in their language. Okay, so then asking them, okay, how comfortable are you with this plan? Hopefully, if it's 8 or above, you're good. If they say a 4, you got to realize they're not going to do that plan, and you got to step back and you got to make a different plan with them. Ask them on that scale of 1 to 10 how comfortable they are with it, and then help them start doing things like set some alarms. Now, let me tell you, I was doing some writing this weekend on a book I'm working on, and I had kind of this little aha moment, which I'd love to hear your feedback on this. I'm going to put it together as a blog, as a blog post. But I got thinking about how we'll tell people all the time, work as hard for yourself as you would for someone else. And that's kind of this general statement we make. If you're going to work a job where you punch in a time clock or even salary or whatever it is, you show up on time, you work X amount of hours, you put in extra mile here and there, you do what you can, okay? And all of a sudden it hit me that all the ways that we get going on a brand new job, so somebody has a new form of employment, some of the things they would do is they'd make sure they'd set an alarm to get up on time. Nobody would just hope that it would happen and take it for granted. They'd make different arrangements for what they're going to eat, how their family life's going to change, if daycare needs to be made. They also have a clear picture, somewhat of a clear picture in their head of why they're getting that job. Rather, they're going to pay off some debt because they now, and sometimes it's not all about money. Sometimes it's my kids are in school and I want to do something to use my talents and my abilities, or they're passionate about this certain industry that they're working in or something like that, okay? But people, there's two things. They make arrangements and set clear, specific actions for how they're going to be successful at that job, and they have a why for having that job. They know what that money is going to go to. Now, it doesn't, whether they're money driven or they're not, or they have a reason for why they want to do that particular kind of work. We have to have our team members do the exact same thing. Explain to them, if you were to get a new job, I hate to say Walmart because it's just, you know, any sort of job, you're to punch the time clock, and you knew if you didn't punch in and you didn't do certain work and you didn't punch out and you didn't make arrangements for where your kids were going to be while you're at work and all those things, of course you would fail and get fired. You have to have the exact same mentality, the exact same actions when starting a business like this, or for someone who may completely start their own business. Like Jennifer, she has her own business on the side with honey. So there's specific actions she has to take with that, okay? All those things, they have to go through the exact same checklist as if you were starting a new job. Set alarms for when you're going to do things. Teach them to do that. Set reminders. No, they won't just remember because they care about it today. The excitement will fade 3 weeks from now. They need an alarm set for, oh, I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to remind my hostesses that I'm coming this week, okay? Teach them how to be deliberate about this exactly the same way as if they were starting a new job somewhere. All the things that they would take care of and manage and make sure were arranged. You know, if they're going to get home at a different hour in the evening than they used to, well, then they switch how they do their evening meals. They might start doing crock pot meals. They might, you know, have a later dinner time so they can eat with their family. Whatever it may be, the exact same thing needs to happen when they're doing this. Every type of action, arrangements for your family, setting alarms, what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, changing it up, and knowing that you're going to get fired if you don't. Nobody fires you but yourself, and they need to know that. Don't fire yourself. Work harder for yourself than anyone else. Make better preparations. Make better, set specific goals, set those alarms, and really cool things can happen. And instead of you did it just so you didn't get fired, you grew and you saw that you can accomplish anything you want to now. It's so amazing what can happen. Can you guys see that principle? Do you think they would get it if you explained it that way? Yeah? What are your thoughts, Janae?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah? What are your thoughts, Jennifer?
Yeah. I agree with it 100%. I never thought of it that way. But it is true, you know, and you think of all the people who do go to work because they have a why. They may hate their job, but their why is strong enough. They've got to put food on the table, or they're trying to put a, you know, kid through college. That why is so strong that they'll do whatever it takes because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's different when we're self-employed, because if our why is not strong enough, yeah, we just quit. We just slow down. We do whatever it is. And so it shows me the importance of finding their why or having them find their why.
Exactly. And the thing is,
so, yeah.
If they're trying to switch from being regular, you know, job employed to self-employed, that how are they going to feel when they accomplish that has to be really, really strongly defined, okay? Because it's really easy to just go, oh, this is too much work. I'm just going to keep doing my job, okay? But when they know what they're going to get out of it or how different it's going to feel, and that not only will they pay for college education, like you mentioned, but now they're going to have more for retirement, that they can make this switch, they've got to have that firmly in front of them. But we've got to take steps, because I'm telling you, they're not going to believe that's possible when you very first meet them and sign them up. We have to move them towards that. You're going to have one or two that will now and then, but not the average person, right, Jennifer? You've seen a million people come through. It,
Right. Yeah.
takes time. But after they do it for a while and those that kick in, I mean, you had people, Hillary, that wasn't her goal when she first started, and now she has a totally different goal. Okay. So it's fun to see the switch, but they've got to have this empowerment that you work harder to prepare than you would starting a job. So anyway, I'll let you know when I get that blog written up today. It's a goal of mine. It's like, it's just like a job, but it's like you wouldn't just assume that you're going to wake up on time. I just like, oh my gosh, okay. All right. So then, just like the other ones we've talked about, you've got to schedule a follow-up 24 to 48 hours after, okay? Whatever they set, whether it's a class, whether it's a one-on-one, whether it's even just getting online and watching training, doesn't matter, okay? If that is their personal success for that moment and they need follow-up and need to get to talk to you about it. So let me tell you 2 different reasons why it's so important that you follow up, okay? Have you ever had a time where you, I don't know, maybe made a craft, maybe you lost 5 pounds, maybe you were patient with a child that you wouldn't have in another situation? Have you ever had a time where you accomplished something and you just wanted to share it with someone? Maybe you took a picture of it and you sent it to your sister, or, you put it on Facebook or something. How often do we have like a little success and we just want someone to celebrate with? Anyone else besides me, like, a little bit of attention or a little bit of feedback like that? Am I the only one? How about you, Jordan? Do you like having people to celebrate with? She's busy with kids.
Yes, sorry.
You're totally fine. I know you're busy with kids. You're fine.
I just ran down the stairs from getting the second one up from bed.
Let's try that. Oh, you're fine. You're totally fine. But it's people like to have someone to celebrate with, okay? And especially, we'll talk about this in a different one, but the 5 love languages, if they're words of affirmation, there's just people, I'm a words of affirmation. I was talking to a friend the other night. We were laughing about, she's like, I post everything on Instagram. It's like, yay, somebody liked it and commented, okay? So it depends on what kind of person they are. But people like to have someone to celebrate with, okay? So if you're not following up, we always think that we need to follow up to stay on top of them so they're doing what they're supposed to. But we will talk about that too here in just a second. But it's really important we follow up because they like to know that you're celebrating with them just as much as you're training them and trying to keep them going, okay? So make that call within 24. It can just be a quick text. It can be an email. It kind of depends on what kind of person that they are and what is their love language and what form of communication they like. That can depend on what their age there is too. They are, but make sure that you follow up and celebrate them. Now, there's another thing you're going to do. When they've had success, it's so important to say, okay, you're feeling good now. That's another time you want to make the next commitment with them. Okay, what are you willing, what do you want to do next now? When they're feeling brave and they see that something worked, that's when you get them to commit to doing more of it because their fear is down. And so you want to keep them going. So when things are going good, don't ever take that for granted as a time that you don't need to talk to them. That might even be the best time to talk to them because you're going to get them more excited to do more things that are outside their comfort zone, okay? So like you say, you can just ask them, hey, what do you plan to do next? What do you think you can accomplish now? And maybe they just want to stay being consistent, and that's totally fine, but they may also be excited about upping their game. Okay, so ask them follow up with their goals. The way I ask people about their goals when I know what they are, I don't ask them straight out, so do you still want this? Or is this still important to you? I ask them, hey, tell me a little more about what you were saying about, paying for dance lessons. Tell me a little bit more about that car that you wanted. So is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much of a priority is that still? Keep them talking about their goals, and as they have success, they will add goals on because their fear is coming down. This is where we kind of have to layer this. This is the trainer. They're now going to start, instead of 20 pounds, they're now going to do 30 pounds. This is where you help them add goals because that fear of failure is coming down. So it's really cool to see what happens, okay? So just keep building them up. It's really, really fun to see what you can do with them. So on the other hand, when there's a situation where they didn't keep their commitment and didn't follow through with what they said that they would do, okay? So I want you to stop and think for a minute. When you've had a situation where you didn't follow through and didn't make the commitment, it's like, okay, how badly do you want to get on the phone with the person that they're going to ask you, hey, did you accomplish this? Okay, we all can screen our calls now. We all can avoid the person that we're not feeling so good about and that. So you got to realize that if they didn't follow through, yeah, they're probably going to avoid you. But if you can comfort them and let them know that, hey, this happens to everybody, it's happened to you, I'm here to understand, what would you like to do next? It's better. So usually what happens when you finally do get them on the phone is you're going to hear concerns and excuses. And 90% of what they're screaming, and sometimes they're not even self-conscious of it, and if you can listen and not, when they're using excuses, it's really easy for us to start to want to fix it and give them ways to do it. Okay, well, just do this. Just try this. What, have you done this yet? And you've got to resist the temptation to do that. Instead, what we want to do is just say, hey, I understand. Excuse me. I understand. And just let the walls come down because they're expecting you to try to fix it for them. And so say, no, I understand. Okay. And just take a deep breath and go, those are things that are hard. So let's go back for a minute and talk about why you started this. Let's see if this is really what you want to be doing and if it's worth it. Ask them those questions about their goals. Tell me more about this. Tell me how you're feeling about this. Explain to me more why this was a goal that you talked about. Find out how important those goals still are to them and what they want to do next, okay? If you get them talking about their goals and their whys and get them to get excited again, then you can go back to making a game plan, okay? Don't try to solve their excuses and their objections for them, okay? They'll just put up, well, but here's another reason, okay? Even if you have the perfect answer for it, they will tell you another reason why they think they can't do it, or it's inconvenient, or it's whatever. But if you can help them feel really safe with you, so they finally actually just tell you what they're scared that's going to happen or isn't going to happen, you're going to have a much better relationship and help them get through it, okay? So revisit their goals. And one of the things, instead of just going right into the fix it, after you revisit their goals, I say, you know what, if there's a way to overcome this, or if there are some solutions I've seen other people use, would you be interested in knowing what they are? Okay, that's where you'll see the turning point. Either they'll say yes, and they were just overwhelmed and they just needed some hope. If they say no, they're telling you their fear is too high, and you can know this isn't a person to spend a lot more time on. Okay, there's a breaking point where people let their fear overtake what they want to accomplish, and you can't control that. You're just going to have some that's what happens. But you're going to have a much better attention rate by having these kind of conversations. So if they say yes, which most of the time they will, they've felt heard by you, they've talked about their goals, they're now ready for solution, versus if you try to give them a solution from the very first time they start telling you their excuses and why it's not working. Okay, go through those things first, then offer. But when you offer to tell them what can be done and would you like to know more about it, and they say then yes or no, then the walls aren't up so high because they've allowed you to come in and tell them what it is that can be done. Okay, does that make sense? Asking permission to give them ideas versus just instantly going into it. When they're telling you their problems, and if you think about it, when have you ever had a conversation with your mom or sister or husband and you're just venting and they start going, well, why don't you do this? Have you tried this yet? Da, da, da. And we kind of get defensive and just kind of like, kind of mentally push off like, look, I just needed to talk about it. I just needed to vent, okay? Some just want to vent and others, they're not usually looking for you to actually solve their problems, even though that's kind of what we hear and we want to do as women. So slow it down and go back to their goals and then ask them if you can give them an idea, okay? So after you've given them a couple ideas and just say, hey, some other people have tried XYZ, then say, which one of those is most comfortable for you? And you will be surprised, okay? It's really cool to see how some will like, oh, no, I think I can do this, okay? And it will give them a couple different options, okay? Some will like, okay, I can do all of them. Some it will be smaller, some it'll be more. I'm always surprised when, okay, scale 1 to 10, how comfortable are you with this? And sometimes when they're really quiet, you're assuming, or I do anyway, I'll make the assumption that they're uncomfortable with it. They're just processing, and some are completely fine with it, and they're just like mentally thinking about how they're going to make it happen. So it's really, really cool to see the shift, and they will start empowering themselves and coming up with their own solutions. And usually actually what happens is they take one of your solutions and they tweak it to what fits their family and their lifestyle. And you'll see them empower themselves. And that's where you don't have to handhold as much because you've gone through it this way versus if you just give them a solution from the very beginning and try to convince them to do it. It's pretty cool to see what happens. So remind them why you believe in them. Go over a couple of their strengths. I know because you're such a people person. I know because you're so passionate about people having an alternative help method. Because you're good at this. Tell them the things they're good at. Yes, they have weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. Can you still be successful with weaknesses? Absolutely. Absolutely. None of us have it all figured out. But they can have plenty of success based on the strengths they have. And remind them that you're there for them and you're going to follow up. And you'll see some really cool things happen. Remember that we're forming habits when they didn't do what they said they would do from the very beginning, okay? 1, there's fears, and 2, a big chunk of the time is they just haven't created business habits yet, okay? You all know what it's taken to form business habits. You remember when you first started with the company you are now or a different company that it hurts at first to get in the habit of doing these things, getting on the phone, being consistent with hostess coaching, all these different things. But then after you got it, it doesn't hurt as much and it's just natural. These things aren't natural for them yet. So that's why you want to do these 24-hour follow-ups instead of 7 days or 30 days, because the habit isn't created. You will spend less time with them overall if you'll do those little mini, let's follow up quick 24-hour to 48-hour things. Celebrate and, okay, it didn't happen, no big deal. What would you like to do next? You have to be completely neutral and show no emotion when they don't do what they say they'll do. You know, as parents, how our kids will do or not do something that we told them to, and you go, why did you do that? Or why did you not do that? Okay, like we can't react that way. Not that you would, but I mean, sometimes we think that. It's just like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with them? You just got to be neutral and realize they're forming new habits, and some of them are terrified. But it gets better, totally gets better, and you can empower them, okay? So we have just a couple minutes. Tell me if there's anything on this I didn't explain well, or if you have any questions on some of these processes. or wording or an example of, a team member, like how would I talk to him about this, any of those kind of things.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
How often would you follow up? I mean, so for these new people, are you thinking, so 24 hours after they sign up, and then again after they do the first class, and then you just kind of keep doing it?
Yeah, I would be really solid for at least 30 days until they're up to about, 4 classes a month. The average is, it's a hobby unless you're doing 4 activities with your company. But I also, on the other hand, if I followed up 3 times really solidly and they don't keep their commitments, I kind of do a 3 strikes. Okay, let me know when you want some help then. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not into beating my head against a wall and trying to force anyone to do anything. It's just empowering them and helping them create those habits. And I will do it, I will also, like, I have these trackers and stuff. I'm trying to remember. There's a couple things like you don't know about that I do, Jen, because we've had different conversations about your other business. But I have this tracker, and I'll tell them, text me every night. I'm like, I turn off all volume, all vibrating. I don't care what time of night. You can text me at 1 a.m. I don't care. But text me and let me know you did your tracker. And they'll get doing it, and they'll set their own alarm on their phone to text me. And I won't hear from a couple days. Hey, how's it going? Well, my alarm just reminds me to do it, so I do it, and I don't have to follow up with you anymore. So you can also go the other direction and make them follow up with you. Do you know what I mean? To empower them that way. It's 2 different ways, but when they're doing something is scary and out of their comfort zone, like a party or class, and they're talking to people, that's where you want to follow up with them, because most of the time they're going to feel like they did something right, they did something wrong. It's just, it's new, it's uncomfortable, it's, so anything like that where they're going to need someone to celebrate with and ask questions, follow up with them consistently for at least 30 days. It just depends on how fast they get going.
Okay. When you have them, and I know I joined late, so maybe you cover this, but when you have them do that bucket list, do you ever go through it with them? So you do the follow-up, and you specifically listen to what they say, or you don't really care anyway, you just want them to create it, or do you go through it so you know what they want?
I will ask them, tell me, there's 2 different ways you can ask it. You can either ask, tell me your 3 favorite things on your bucket list, or 3 things you're most excited about. Or the other way you can do it is, tell me 3 things on there you'd like to have happen in the next 6 months. So you don't want to go through the whole list of 100 with them, but you definitely want to act interested in it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And I'll give them an assignment. Hey, email me with 3 of your favorite things from your bucket list. Like, you could put out a team challenge and say, hey, everybody who creates a bucket list and send me 3 of your top 3 things on your bucket list goes into drawing for XYZ.
Okay.
Okay. Janae, how do you see this helping with some of your team members?
What's that?
How do you see this helping with some of your current team members?
I think it'll help get them, because some of them have kind of, it's almost like they've taken the summer off almost.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll help them
Reboot.
Yeah, reboot and help them realize their goals and how they can reach them, and whatever they may be. If they want to make big money, then they can do that, and we can set up a plan. Right. Or if they just want to kind of do this as a hobby, then they'll know how to do that as well.
Right. Passive income versus more deliberate income.
Yeah.
But educate them on it's expensive hobby. You know what I mean? Like, tell them what can be done. I mean, don't just use a scare, look, but if you're doing this is how much money you make and earn the cruise and, blah, blah, blah. But, that's a very expensive kit to get in with.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan, if you're not wrestling kids, is there, and if you've heard most of it, it sounds like you may have been with kids most of the time. Was there anything that you could see in the way of questions that will help you better work with your team members? That's okay. All right. Okay. Well, Jennifer, I'm really glad you joined us. What was the best thing that you got out of this call today?
Well, I can just think of people right away on who I need to help restart. In fact, there's a few on one or two on Hillary's team, and I keep telling her, obviously, rank isn't motivating her. Money isn't motivating. I mean, other life things are coming into play that doTERRA is not the priority right now. And so now it makes me think of other people on my team. How can we self-motivate them? Anything we do or say, it's not even worth it. And I work that way too. I've got to build on it and do it. So, okay, wait just a second, Mom, I'll help you. And so I look at it going, okay, I need to do this. I need to do, my bucket list. I've started. I need to do it. I need to do it with these ladies so that they can self-motivate themselves again, which I feel like convention does it. doTERRA does that once a year, but it needs to be happening way more than that.
Right. This is the problem with conventions, is that people come home with goals based on some ideas that the company gave them versus, and they can't personalize it. They're talking to groups of thousands, okay? It's not, I mean, they mean well. They're doing the best they can talking at all these thousands of people at the same time. But they're talking about incentives and monies and levels, and they're giving all these awards. And so you'll have this person come home and go, oh, I think I want this award. But they're really a change the world person. You see it happen over and over again, Jennifer. 30 days goes by and those people have died again. Okay? The problem with conventions, it just it sort of frustrates me sometimes. People put so much money into going to conventions, and sometimes that's not where they need to be motivated, quite frankly, and not motivated over the long run. Does that make sense? And I know it's good to be there for product knowledge, to rub shoulders with people, to learn how people are doing it in different parts of the country that maybe you hadn't thought about doing there. Those things are invaluable. But people come home sometimes thinking that they can convince themselves to be motivated based on what other people accomplish. But okay, so do you know Barb, Hillary's Barb?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me give you an example, okay? So I can't remember if we've talked about motivational styles. I talked about it in the last call, so I'll send you the recording of it. Okay, but there's these 3 questions, and I'm going through these questions with Barb, and I'm trying to figure out what motivates her. If it's change the world, if it's money, titles, these different things, and we're trying to decide if she's going to do this training with me, and I can't figure out what motivates her. She likes the product, but it's not like she thinks it's the only thing out there. She needs some money, but she's not desperate for it. And we're going around, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure what to do for her. Finally, I'm like, well, why do you do this? She says, well, I like to be consistently doing classes, because I like feeling like a good presenter. Her whole thing was she just liked feeling solid and feeling confident in being a good presenter. That was it. That was her thing. And I'm like, oh, I find out people's whys. I know how to pull it out of them better than, some people do. And I was having a hard time pulling it out of this gal, and she's kind of quiet anyway. she likes feeling confident. That's what it came down to. And I was like, wow, okay. But the thing is, her goals have increased because her confidence has increased. And it's pretty cool to see how she's not settling as much as she was before. Now, when I met her, she also had some kind of family situations going on where she wasn't putting, you couldn't have paid her to put doTERRA first. But still, to see her desires increase, because we've talked about what she wanted, which was her just self-improve, her personal, just becoming more of who she wanted to be as a person. It just is fascinating. So fascinating when you can get down to people's whys. And then you have to make sure that that's what you talk about when you get them on the phone. And you can't talk about Susie's or Becky's. Like, you can only talk about, Barb's when you're talking to Barb. You can ask them, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much would you like this? And it will rank as her confidence level raises. But you know what I mean? You can't get sidetracked and like, well, okay, let's help you make all this money. And she's like, well, that's not what I want. I have an author, for example. She tells you straight out, I'm terrified of success. I don't want to be interviewed. I don't want to make a whole bunch of money that makes me uncomfortable. Why do you want to do this then? I just want to change, help youth have a positive inspiration. And she's got this book written and she's selling it. And it's because I only talk to her about the youth that she's going to help. If I talk to her about the money she's going to make, I can't get her to do anything. If I talk about the youth, she'll do anything I ask her to do. It's really cool when you get it. It's pretty amazing. So, I have another call here. I have to go, guys. But I will download this recording and get it to you, okay?
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for joining me. We'll talk next week, okay?
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.